I did not explain at the very beginning of the evening what the purpose of Grace Talks was and why we are doing this. We will be having an ongoing series every month where we have a different topic with introducing people of color to the white community. And I say introducing people of color to the white community because by the year 2040, the majority of people in the United States will be of color. And we need to start talking. We have too many Glenn Becks, Rush Limbaughs. They're becoming more frightened by the day, and the people that they're preying upon are not the weird ones like us. The people, as my friend calls it, those of us slightly to the left. So they are far to the right, and they need to understand, and we need to help them understand. And so the purpose of this is for us to get together to talk. So I'm so excited about this program because I know all of these lovely ladies, and some for many years, we won't say how many. And the first person we're going to introduce is Abel Gordley. Abel has faced many challenges growing up in Portland, and I know she grew up in the 50s and 60s in North Portland. Northeast Portland. I grew up there down the street from her. We even played dolls. We were kind of in that transition period from dolls to boys. You know, so we were moving into that thing. She's worked as a professional and a public servant. Gordley has moved toward public life following the 1988 drive-by killing of Joseph Ray Winston, becoming the program director of the House of Umoja's local chapter, working to help at-risk youth. At the same time, she got involved in civic and political attention for the growing problem of gang violence in the North and Northeast Portland, and it's still an issue that she's working on. In 1992, she ran as a Democrat and was elected to the Oregon House for District 19. And after 2 terms in the House, she was elected to the Senate in District 23. In winning the 1996 election, she became the first African-American woman to be seated in the Oregon Senate. And I'm glad to say not the last. Gordley won over the public through her constant involvement with progressive civic issues such as environmental justice, women's rights, funding for early childhood programs, as well as raising the state's minimum wage. Let's hear it for this, raising the state's minimum wage. She also sponsored a bill that proclaimed Juneteenth, or June 19th, of every year to be a day of statewide celebration of dignity and freedom of all citizens. And for those of you who don't know, June 19th was the day that word got to people in further west that slavery had ended. So it's a day a lot of people from Texas celebrate and have barbecues, and we're all real happy. Her actions with the legislature earned her recognition as the conscience of both the House and the Senate. She's a senior fellow of the American Leadership Forum, and she's an associate professor at Portland State University Black Studies program. She's worked to encourage more minority teachers in public schools. This month, her biography, is it your biography? Oh, her memoir. I see. I have not had a chance to read it yet, can't wait to get into it. It's called Remembering the Power of Words. The Life of an Oregon Activist, Legislator, and Community Leader. And it's been published as part of the series Women in Politics in the Pacific Northwest. I'd like to present to you Senator Abel Gordley.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and good evening to everyone. What I'd like to do is just read a piece from Remembering the Power of Words, and I'll read from the postscript. Before I do that, I'll share 3 quotes that appear at the front of the book, and these are quotes that speak to me, that resonate with me deeply. The first is from Frederick Douglass, who said, "I prefer to be true to myself, even at the hazard of incurring the ridicule of others, rather than to be false, and to incur my own abhorrence. And then Audre Lorde said, while we wait in silence for that final luxury of fearlessness, the weight of that silence will choke us. And then from 2 Timothy, 1st chapter, 7th verse, King James Version, it says, for God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of a sound mind. The chapter is titled, Don't Forget Our People. Don't Forget Our People. In May 2009, Archbishop Desmond Tutu spoke at the University of Portland, sponsored by Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon. Bishop Tutu spoke about racial reconciliation and reconciliation in all of its forms. To hear him speak and to hear him acknowledge all of the support that came from other nations in the world during the anti-apartheid struggle, and knowing that he was talking about what we did here in Oregon, brought the feeling of accomplishment and connection all back home to me. He honored the fact that we marched, we protested, and we demonstrated in solidarity with the people of South Africa. They struggled so mightily for their freedom and won it without a massive bloodbath. It was remarkable. As I left the Child Center, I ran into several people with whom I worked during those years. One of the women, the late Bonnie Tinker, a Quaker, long active with American Friends Service Committee, said that of all the people, she had hoped that I was present because she remembered what we had done together in that fight. We looked at each other, and there were the beams and smiles that come when your heart is full. Our hearts were full of the moment. It was also amazing to see Bonnie and her partner, Sarah Graham, and their grown children at the event. The kids were just little things back in the day. The whole evening was an affirmation of what it means to be a conscious human being, in love with humanity, and to be in the presence of so many others who share the same belief. It was a magical package. Everything that Bishop Tutu said made me feel like I was caught up in his embrace. He had such a wonderful way with language and uses humor so effectively to communicate. Had I had the chance to personally greet him, I would have thanked him for speaking the language of hope and for his sense of humor. Laughter is connected to hope. Even when we are enduring all kinds of pain, it is important to laugh. I would have also told him that I had picked up his book, African Prayers, in Washington, D.C., when I visited the African Museum at the Smithsonian in January 2008. This was a trip to participate in a national Fred Friendly production, Minds on the Edge, a mental health and public policy event. This was a highlight in my career as a champion for world-class mental health treatment for all. I had made a gift of his biography, Rabble-Rouser for Peace, to my pastor, the Reverend Dr. W.G. Hardy Jr., and to Dr. Dalton Miller-Jones, then chair of the Black Studies Department at Portland State University. Hearing Bishop Tutu was like things coming full circle in the South Africa chapter in my life. And I listened to him in the beautiful concert that evening with a deep feeling of affirmation. Affirmation of spirit, of hope, and that all we have on this planet is one another. When it's all said and done, how we treat one another is what this world is all about. Even as we're being tested, that's what it is all about. My work touching West Africa remains ongoing. Back in 1999, while still in the state Senate, I led a 3-week trade mission for the Oregon legislature to South Africa and Zambia, carrying a letter of introduction from Governor Kitshaber. Dumisani Khumalo was then President Mandela's head of foreign affairs. He put together all of our arrangements and meetings on the South Africa side. President Mandela was away in China, but aware of our visit. From the moment we arrived in South Africa, we were treated like royal guests from Oregon. Everyone knew the Oregon anti-apartheid story. People in South Africa, everyday people, not just officials, had respect for Oregon. And this respect made me painfully aware, by contrast, that people back in Oregon had no clue about the stature that the state had earned in the eyes of the South African People's Movement for Freedom. On this trip, I brought with me a box of buttons from all of our different campaigns from that movement. With Dumisani Khumalo in President Mandela's office, we looked at the buttons, like the one that said, Van Pelt must go, saying, oh, remember this event and remember that event. In the collection is a South African flag, and the buttons are attached to it. Kamal Siddiqui brought the flag home to me after he made a trip to South Africa to witness the first vote in 1994. As we moved through our visit, having lunch and touring the Capitol building, we relived different moments in the movement that led up to freedom. At one point, we stood outside President Mandela's office. Inscribed over the door in marble, it says, Office of the President. I put my hand up there just to touch and feel that it was real. It was a totally amazing time. Too many people in Oregon are unaware of the significance of South Africa's freedom and of our state's role in the movement. During my 1999 trip, Dumisani, who is currently permanent ambassador from South Africa to the United Nations, told the Oregon delegation that the doors of South Africa were open to our state for cultural exchange, tourism, and business. We had the same reception in Zambia. Only a few Oregon leaders, people like Vic Atia, former governor, and Mark Hatfield, former U.S. Senator, people with well-developed rather than provincial worldviews really understood what that meant. I brought that explicit message back to the Oregon Economic and Community Development Department, complete with a slide presentation from our delegation and a first-class report. To this day, to my knowledge, no one from the Economic and Community Development Department ever got on a plane to go back to South Africa or Zambia, where we had sat with the heads of government and state officials to further develop the relationships we had cultivated. In Zambia, our delegation met with cabinet ministers and the vice president of the country. One of the ministers was responsible for the environment and economic development. He had studied Oregon's forestry industry backwards and forwards. They had already determined what they wanted to model, the development of their forestry industry on Oregon because of our sustainable practices. They had done the research and they knew exactly what they wanted, technology transfer. They knew that we had equipment that wasn't being used because of the downturn in the forestry industry. Their idea was that perhaps some of the equipment could be sold and be put to use. Our delegation's tour of the country included the forest and mills. And while we were sitting around that table with the Zambian ministers of state, they informed us, of an international forestry conference taking place in Zambia during our visit. They wanted to introduce our delegation from Oregon because they were so honored and excited to have Oregonians present, and a few of our members did attend. The Zambian Minister of Mines was even growing Oregon grass seed on his own land. as an experiment to see if Oregon grass seed would take hold in African soil. Such was our wonderful reception in Africa, and such was the seriousness of our host about doing business with Oregon. Soon after our trip, the head of parliament in Zambia actually made the trip to Oregon. He met the president of our Senate at the time, Grady Adams. He met with Governor Kitzhaber. And in my mind, that visit was a huge thing, and Oregon treated it so badly. We were not organized to set up to take advantage of the opportunity. We did not know how. The not knowing how piece connects to a lack of cultural competency on the part of state agencies and in the legislature, and to an embedded fear and ignorance about Africa. What I heard in Capitol committee rooms was that Africa is a land of drought, war, famine, and AIDS. We need to learn and understand that Africa is not a millstone around humanity's neck. Africa is generous. Africa is a martyr, and Africa is the solution, as has been eloquently said by Aminata Traore. As Associate Professor of Black Studies at Portland State University, I have had the opportunity to travel to Ghana as part of a delegation focused on education, cultural exchange, trade, and tourism. The Black Studies Department at PSU have a memorandum of understanding with Cape Coast University in Ghana that allows for the exchange of faculty and students. And it is my hope and desire to travel back to Ghana in the next few years to help advance the agenda, this agenda, and the Sister City Agreement between Cape Coast, Africa, and Portland, Oregon, which is being developed now. My courses at PSU have focused on African American leadership, public policy, and community development. And I so enjoy mentoring young people like Nafisa. Mentoring young people and emerging leaders who have a heart for public service. It is my hope to be a part of developing the North Star Leadership Development Institute at PSU, named for Frederick Douglass' anti-slavery newspaper, The North Star, by one of my mentors, Dr. Darrell Milner. My commitment to the Institute idea brings full circle a journey of service and learning, deeply inspired and shaped by Black Studies at Portland State University, which the renowned scholar educator Milner has helped to nourish. I am deeply grateful to Melody Rose at Portland State University and to the Oregon State University Press and the thoughtful editorial board and staff, particularly Thomas Booth and editor Joe Alexander, for the respect and value assigned to this work and for an amazing learning experience. And I am deeply, deeply grateful to my colleague at Portland State, Dr. Patricia Schechter, who sat with me for 22 hours plus of interviews. And those interviews became a manuscript that then became this book. In this work, as I conclude, in this work, too, I honor Mrs. Vivian Richardson, the late Vivian Richardson. One day, after a meeting of the African American Alliance Unity Breakfast at the Irvington Covenant Assisted Living Center, I stopped in to visit with Mrs. Richardson. She was a resident and longtime Black United Front member and former secretary of that organization. We shared memories about Portlanders Organized for Southern African Freedom, or POSAF, and BUP. And as we parted, she looked me directly in the eye and said, "Don't forget our people." Her words were electric and went directly to my heart. A favorite African proverb says, when the heart is full, it comes out through the mouth. And so it is.
Thank you, Abel. Those words were touching. And this is all about heart. With that in mind, our next speaker is Kathleen Sadat. I've known Kathleen, I think, since 1985. I first met her in the locker room at Lloyd Center Athletic Club as we were pulling off our sweaty workout clothes. I don't know how good we were at it, but we were sweaty anyway. And Kathleen was holding court. And I remember thinking, who is this woman? You know, she's just going on and on. And then I started listening, and I thought, this is pretty heavy. And I, went out and asked people, who is Kathleen Sadat? You don't know Kathleen Sadat? And they all know, well, I don't. I just got back in town. But it's been very rewarding knowing Kathleen. I guess now it's been, that's 25 years now. And we now serve together on the Human Rights Commission, and I'm very proud to say that. And she's still holding court. And I'm still sitting there in awe. Kathleen is a longtime trainer, public speaker, and activist who has achieved numerous awards and has been a part of so many amazing organizations. After earning a degree in psychology from Reed College, she held managerial positions with the City of Portland CETA job training programs throughout the 70s and 80s. In the mid-1980s, she was appointed Executive Director for the Oregon State Commission on Black Affairs. Then in 1987, Oregon's governor appointed Sadat the State Director of Affirmative Action. From 1990 to 1992, she was Assistant to Portland City Commissioner Gretchen Kafori. Kathleen has remained as an independent contractor, worked as a trainer, facilitator, public speaker, and consultant specializing in diversity issues. Over the past decade, she worked for the Cascade AIDS Project, first as diversity manager, then as director of diversity. I call it the director of Cascade AIDS Project, but she said that wasn't it. I gave her promotion, no money, just a promotion. Currently, she is the City of Portland Interim Diversity Development Affirmative Action Manager. And I'm very happy to say that Kathleen will do an excellent job of representing us in that position. And I know she will make sure that people get justice in that position. She has received many awards. A few among them are the Bayard Rustridge Civil Rights Award, the Portland Lesbian Communities Project Spirit of Portlandia Award for Leadership in 87 and in 92. A Civil Liberties Award from the Oregon chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union, a Lifetime Achievement Award from the World Arts Foundation. With great pleasure, I introduce Kathleen Sadat.
Said before, bon temps roulé. That's a good time for Happy Mother's Day. Also, Happy International Women's Day. I'm going to do something different tonight. You know, a lot of times I talk, I do public speaking. I don't talk about myself in the way I'm going to talk about myself tonight. I'm here to talk about racism and sexism and the consequences of it, and how we need to listen to the yelps, the screams, the cries that come from the people who are injured by these phenomena, these acts that are visited upon people who are not deserving of the violence that is perpetrated upon them. Nobody is. Excuse me. I also came to talk a little bit about hope. But that's later. Be nice if I had a light, but that's okay. I'm going to try to do this. What I believe is that if we're going to change anything, we have to look at what those things are. And there's no way that we can go through changing racism, sexism, otherism of any kind if we won't look at the realities of it, if we won't claim it as something that we are a part of, whether we intend to be or not, and then begin to work on ourselves and the world. And then there's a dynamic between us and the world. And we change the world by changing ourselves. And we don't have to wait for one to be finished before we do the other. They all happen at the same time, just like life. I want to tell you about the names I've been called in my life. The names that other people gave me. And then I want to tell you about how I came to love me and to name myself. I was born in 1940 in St. Louis, Missouri. Wall to wall, what we were colored people. Okay? This was a large city of about 1 million people when I was born, and a very large black population. Railroad workers, people who worked in factories. But I knew lawyers and doctors growing up. I knew teachers. I knew people who did day work. It was a community of people from all walks of life. And because of segregation, you had to be a community, and you had to stay a community. I lived with my family in a very large house, very wonderful house. I'll say I grew up living in a grand house with my extended family, full of loving aunts and uncles, dignified Negroes is what they call themselves. And I got no problem with the word. I'm standing on the shoulders of those Negroes. They valued family, education, laughter, good food, good manners. I was scrubbed and combed daily because my grandmother believed that cleanliness was next to godliness, and she wanted me sitting next to God every chance I got. I grew up living in a trailer on the campus of Tennessee A&I State University with my 2 younger brothers, my father, and his second wife, the one I call mother. It was after World War II, and my father was returning to college to get his degree. I learned about spontaneous combustion when the university barn caught fire. I learned how to have fun playing on the college campus. And I learned about riding in the backs of buses. And I learned about being called nigger. I grew up living with the extended family of my stepmother where the toilet was outside. We bathed in a tin tub. My step-grandmother and great-grandmother cooked on wood-burning stoves. I loved living there. I loved it. I could be outside. I was a child. I wasn't afraid of anything. I climbed trees. And I was called tomboy. My grandma Cat, who I adored, when I insisted I wanted creases in my jeans, creased my jeans. I was called tomboy. Throughout grade school, I found that the words, "you think you're white," or "black is the race, yellow's disgrace," were often a prelude to getting pushed, shoved, or socked. My brother and I were run home regularly as the yellow kids until we learned to push, shove, or sock first. I was called Yellow Gal. I was called Yellow Gal. I grew up living in a 5-room house. Remember, 1 room was the kitchen, with 4 adults and 4 children and 1 bathroom. I shared a small bedroom with 2 brothers and a cousin. I learned to take care of children, to hide under the stairs in order to be alone, to spend time, hours reading, escaping. Huck Finn, Swiss Family Robinson, Robinson Crusoe, anything to get away. I also learned what it felt like to be raped 3 times before I was 11 years old. I was called beautiful. I was called bitch. I grew up living on the south side of Chicago in Hyde Park, where I had my own bedroom, my own bathroom, my own telephone. I got that one of my uncles was not really my uncle. My Uncle Charles was my father's brother, but my Uncle Nat, well, he was my Uncle Charles's friend. And we didn't talk about that a lot. They took care of me. I was happy. I learned about opera and Paul Whiteman. I learned about Hanukkah and that people from Puerto Rico spoke Spanish. I learned about the bombing of Hiroshima and the Holocaust. I was treated well by my family, and I was called Kathy D. I grew up on the west side of Chicago, living with my biological mother and her husband, where on my first day of going to Farragut High School, I stepped over a janitor who was trying to scrub the words, "No niggers," up from the steps. I stepped across him because I was supposed to go to school. I learned trigonometry and civics and the polka and how to cope while living with a stepfather who raped me until I left home to get away from him. I was told that I would be sent to a girls' reformatory if I told on him, and I believed him. I was called bitch. I was called whore. By that time, I believed that it was my fault that men were raping me. I thought I'd done something. When you have somebody leaning over you and saying, "You're so beautiful, I can't help myself," and this is a grown man and you're a child, and all you can figure is it must be your fault somehow. I don't want to talk about the abstractions of race and sexism. I want to talk about the realities, what it feels like. I want you to think about it. I want you to know that it hurts when you step into a school that says no niggers on the step, and you are terrified and you don't know what's going to happen to you, and there's nobody there to protect you. It is your first day in this school on the west side of Chicago. It's terrifying. I went into therapy. It helped me get over some of the belief that it was my fault. It never helped me get over the scars. I grew up talking to my therapist about feeling born bass backwards into the world. I didn't like myself because I was gay. And I couldn't figure it out how I was going to live in this world and be an upstanding human being. I used to tell her, I think I just want to get on my horse and ride off into the sunset, because I just don't know what to do with all this stuff. I went in crying. I said, "This is wrong and that's wrong, this is wrong and that's wrong," and talked about my family and the complications there and about myself. And she said, "You know, I can't do anything about all the rest of those people, but we can do something with you." I stopped crying. I said, "Oh, this woman makes sense." This makes sense. Something has to change here. I worked with her for a long time. It helped me. And it is also a part of why I got out of St. Louis to come to Oregon. I needed to be somewhere else in order to finish growing up. And I came here to finish growing up. And so I applied to Reed College. Now, the people there were much too refined to say, "Old nigger bitch." They just said, "How do you think you will survive in an upper-class white middle-class school?" They said things like, "We don't have any money for you." Until my first set of grades came, and they found scholarship money. La-di-da. So there was another word in there that I hadn't heard in the beginning. I was busy hearing the racial, the things that referred to my age. But I think they thought I wasn't too bright either. Oh well. At 30 years old, I had run away from St. Louis to come here, trying to find a new life. At that school, I found a new life. I found intellectual stimulation. I found another way to look at the world. I found the possibility that I could do things that I'd never thought of before. And that outweighed the comments on race. The student in a class who said, "Why are all black men pimps?" And me being absolutely livid and inarticulate, just saying, "My father would kill you if you called him a pimp. My father would kill you if you called him a pimp." He worked 3 jobs sometimes to keep us fed. It's all I could say. I didn't know anything else to say. I got no help from the teacher. I got no help from the other students. I graduated. There was an instructor who didn't expect me to graduate, and he let me know. And I said something that was very nice to him that I won't say in front of you. I named myself Grateful Graduate. Because in spite of all the stuff, I had something that now could not be taken away from me, and something I enjoyed. I made a bibliography for the rest of my life. I grew up and I decided it didn't really matter much to me why somebody was going to be biased or bigoted when they related to me. I didn't care if it was because I'm a dyke, or because I'm black, or because I'm a woman, or because I'm fat. I'm sick of it. I am just absolutely, positively sick of it. I don't even care about the analysis. Just get the hell out of my way. So I joined a few activist groups, a whole bunch of them. And I was probably in every march in this city between 1974 and until the last time we marched against the war, and we knelt down on the bridge and I couldn't get up. I thought it was important, and I still believe it's important, to speak out when you think things are wrong. I think it's important that we begin to tell our stories to one another, and that even if you didn't ride the back of the bus in 1947 with me in Nashville, Tennessee, you know what humiliation feels like. So you don't have to ride that bus. You just have to get in touch with the times when you have felt humiliated, the times when you have felt denigrated, the times when you have felt alone and isolated and attacked, the times when you haven't known what to do because what was coming at you was so insane, so unreasonable, so unthinkable. Just get in touch with the feelings, because it ain't going to come out of here. You know this. We all know the stuff we need to know. So what's in the way? I am you, you are me. Can we get there? That's what gets in the way, not wanting to get there. After, I've been here 41 years in Portland, and I guess I've been called names. Indirectly and directly. Nigger, dyke, other things. I've been followed in stores. You know, people think that you're going to steal. I got on my jeans and a sweatshirt, and I'm just out spending money. And somebody's following me, and I learned a trick. Go over and stand next to them. Just go over and stand next to them. They'll leave you alone. You scare the hell out of them, number one. All the people that call me names, I have in turn named them. I named them mean, bigoted, fearful, and lost. I grew up and learned to do the ongoing introspection that helped me learn who I am and how that differs from who I want to be in this world. And that introspection helps me know how to approach that person I want to be, how to move toward what it is I believe in. I believe we all have good hearts, but it's sometimes hard to see if you're living that heart out. And the only way you can see it is if you look inside over and over again and you watch yourself behave. I started to understand myself and my limits, to accept that I was not all-knowing, and to keep going. I learned to forgive myself for not being God. I learned to forgive myself for not being God, for not being perfect, for not being omnipotent, for not being able to change all the things that I want to change, including me. I grew up to claim as mine both the positive and negative aspects of me. I learned the several hundred ways in which I could be a jerk, and I am still working on managing them. What's true is I don't really want to let go of all of them. And I own that. I want a repertoire of behaviors that includes the possibility of being a jerk sometimes. I just want to manage it better. I learned the freedom that comes with knowing what you are, what you're capable of, and admitting it when you mess up. There's nothing as liberating as saying, I'm sorry, I did it wrong. There is nothing as liberating as knowing who you are and what you're capable of and owning it when it happens. There's nothing as liberating as acknowledging that you don't know stuff you weren't supposed to know or you never got taught. That's another part of forgiving yourself for not being God. There's no reason for you to know all the stuff in this world because nobody taught you. Nobody talked to you about it. Nobody helped you understand it. I grew up and I learned not to respond to the names I'd been called in the past. They were never mine. My real names are lover of peace, woman who believes in redemption and reconciliation, woman who seeks knowledge, citizen of the planet, blessed child of the universe. My name is Kathleen.
Court is not adjourned. Court is not adjourned. Listening to Kathleen talk, I thought of Asa Hilliard, Dr. Asa Hilliard. And I heard him speak when I first came back to Portland in about 1985. And he said that there were 4 things that caused problems between people and nations: ignorance, fear, envy, and greed. I see you and I don't know who you are. I don't know what you do. You're different than me. And so therefore, since you do something different, I'm fearful. And yet I look at you and think, you're doing pretty well, so I think I want to be like you. I want what you have. I want to be as good as you. And then the greed comes in. And the greed comes in and causes people to hurt each other. And all I can say is that, as I told some young men earlier this week, we need to forgive people. And I'm clear that Kathleen has done that in her life to those people who hurt her. Thank you.
Yeah, let me say this. If you don't forgive, you can't have community, you can't have love, you can't have family, you can't have nothing.
Our next speaker is Antoinette Edwards. I first met Antoinette in 1985 when I first came back to town, and I needed to get involved in things. I had come from a situation that was full of heartbreak for me, just gone through losing custody of my child, and there's all kinds of pains that we suffer in life. And I came back to town and I decided, I have to get involved. There's some things I can do. I can be in the wrong beds, or I can go get active. So I went and got hyperactive in the community to soothe my soul. And I met Antoinette working on the Black Women's Gathering. I believe Abel was doing that too. And Kathleen, was you in that too? Excuse me. Kathleen, were you in that too? Excuse me. Not was you in that. Were you in that too? Okay, I'm not going to go to the vernacular. Okay. So it was a lot of fun. I remember Antoinette, and I've watched her over the years grow. Antoinette is slightly junior to us, shall I say.
Always us white.
Always us white, yeah. But girlfriend is doing her thing and growing, and I just thought of that when I read her title. Wait till you get to her new title, her job title. It blew me away. I fell out. Antoinette has spent most of her lifetime engaged in community activism. She's provided over 25 years reaching out to the most vulnerable populations in our community, providing leadership, policy development, service provisions, and advocacy for children and families in North and Northeast Portland. Antoinette has served as the first director of diversity at the Oregon Trail chapter of the American Red Cross. She co-founded Portland Black PFLAG, Parents, Families, and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, and co-founded the African American Alliance. She's been a consultant to Portland Public Schools, Morrison Center, Children's Relief Nursery, Multnomah County, Girls Inc., Portland Development Commission, and Portland Fire and Rescue. In other words, everybody. Antoinette is featured on Portland's Women Making History mural. If you haven't seen it, you need to go see it. It is just beautiful. It's down on Interstate and Interstate and Russell? Right around Interstate and Russell. You know where Russell is? You go down and there's a light. Well, if you're coming down Interstate going south, is that? Yeah, I guess it is south. I'm a little turn around now. If you're going south, then look straight ahead to your right, and there's a building, and she's there, and she's got on a beautiful headpiece, and she's always looking beautiful. I'm going to steal that necklace tonight. Okay. It's the first large-scale mural in Portland that pays tribute to the contributions of local women community leaders. She received the 2009 Gladys McCoy Award that was established in 1994 to honor those who have given outstanding service in the area of community service and citizen involvement. Currently, get this, she is the Director of Public Safety and Peacekeeping for the City of Portland. That's better known as Keep the Neighborhoods Quiet. I introduced you to Antoinette Edwards.
Oh, this feels so good. I'm so honored. These are my sister friends. And Cliff said, I said, I'm intimidated. I'm sandwiched in between Abel and Kathleen. He said, girl, just go tell your story. But I have to tell a story about these sisters. They are truly my mentors and my sister friends. Now, Abel, when you're just feeling kind of down and low, she has that soothing kind of voice. Sister, just get away and meditate. And it's all love. God gonna bless you. And I feel better about myself. Then I go to Kathleen. And she gives me what I need, how I need it, in a way that like, damn. But then I say, thank you. I remember once I was playing my victimhood, and I was just so feeling oppressed and down, and she said, get off the damn cross. Jesus already paid the price. So to be in the company of my beloved sisters, I am honored. I am honored. And to see you all, I said, oh, I'm not going to start mentioning names, because when Sister Abel just like, I love all the same people and more. It kind of reminded me of the song Teddy Pendergrass, and if you know it, I'm a hard card holder. It's so good loving somebody when somebody loves you back. That's what I'm feeling this evening. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my story. and my journey, and I'm still on it. I was born in Southern Alabama, segregated South in 1952. I'm the oldest of 6 children. My mother and father just loved me. We were poor, but that's not what I remember. I was loved. And I remember the 3-room house and the outhouse. But I remember that I was loved. Though it was segregated and my mother worked in a restaurant that we couldn't eat in, and my grandmother raised the white woman's children, I was loved. There were white and colored signs, but I remember that I was loved. And so with that love and that journey, my grandmother and my grandfather said, well, I'm going to go up north for a better way. And my grandfather intimidated my father and said, give me your firstborn. I'm like, damn, Grandpa, that's kind of mafia-like. It worked. And I remember experiencing that, leaving the South where I picked the cotton, and we go in the storm cellar, and we were all together, and coming up north for a better way. And it was like the journey of 2 worlds. And when I think of my story, and Cliff said, just tell your story, it was like that 2 worlds. And as an African-American woman, living in 2 worlds, and how do you console yourself and be in that? So coming up north, memories of my grandfather. He became sick and he couldn't work in the shipyard. He washed dishes at Sheraton Hotel, and it's no longer there. But he took care of me and my grandmother and my sisters, going to Boyce Elliott School, and hey, give a shout out to Boyce Elliott. Walking past Wonder Bread, and you felt, ooh, you smelled that good old bread. And then Doris's Cafe in Bob City. I mean, we had a community. It was a neighborhood.
Thank you.
There was no gentrification there. And I remember just walking past and just feeling the love. And then, I talk about Boyce Elliott a bit, since you gave a shout out to Boyce Elliott. I remember being in 6th grade and I loved to read. Education really is that ticket, and just reading. And I remember my grandparents, we lived on Williams Avenue, but we would walk to the library every Saturday all the way up to Killingsworth. They never drove. I was just loved. So I'm at Boyce Elliott, and we're going to have a talent show, and we're going to do Motown. And you know how sometimes, has anybody in here ever felt like they were weird and different? Just raise your hand. It's all good. It's all good. We family. We love each other. Okay, I'm with my peeps. I'm with my peeps.
That's why we all here.
That's it. We're not watching a reality show. We're on reality. Okay. So we would have a talent show, and my friends was going to practice Motown sounds and do this and that. And why did me being a little different? I chose a poem by Langston Hughes, born in Joplin, Missouri in 1902. And it was the poem that just spoke to my soul. And I don't know why. It was A Negro Speaks of River. I want to read a little bit of it, because it speaks to that connectedness. When I say that I'm African American, I'm Afrocentric, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother of 13 children, 5 children, but I feel a connectedness to Africa, and that poem just spoke to me. And it says, the Negro speaks of rivers. I've known rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world, and older than the flow of human blood and human veins. My soul grows deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when the Dons were young. I built my hut near the Congo, and it lulled me to sleep. I looked up on the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans. And I've seen its dusky rivers turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient dusky rivers. My soul grows deep like the rivers. Now I'm 6th grade and I'm feeling this connection to Africa. So I'm thinking, what is that in me? I've never been there. When I was a little girl, I'd shave my hair like my grandfather was bald-headed. I said, I don't know what tribe it is, but I think I'm a part of it. But it's that connectedness that was always there with me. And so I'm at Boyce Elliott, and I'm reading books, and they say that we're smart. And my grandparents want the best for me, and they said, well, you're a smart little black girl. Why don't you get bussed out? So I'm bussed out, to West Sylvan, where the Littmans are and the Tompkins are and all those white people with different names with money are. And I leave an A+ student to C. And I didn't understand. What's wrong with me? I was this awesome little weird girl, but a smart girl. And then I was reminded again of those two worlds. When I'd go back home down south and pick the cotton, then I'd come back up north and I'd ride the bus to West Sylvan, and coming back down to my hood, those two worlds. And I was troubled by that, but it's okay. But I'm still unloved. And as I'm growing up, I go to Girls Poly, go all the way back, Girls Poly, and all girls school. I'm thinking, oh, I'm a little different here. You know, I live across from Jefferson High School. I'm going to Girls Poly. Those two worlds. Being black, but adjusting, not being too black. Talking black, but not being too black. Knowing how to get that swag on. And then dealing with white folks. And I'm thinking, you know, something's speaking to me. So I'm from the Black Student Union at Girls Poly. I said, okay, I'm coming on back home to black. But still living in the two worlds with the white friends, the Wiccan friends. And I'm sharing this with you because it's kind of like that dichotomy as an African American and that evolution of being who I am and fitting in, being who I am, who you think I am, and who I ought to be, as Kathleen talked about. And just getting to be comfortable with being who I am. And I'm still figuring it out. With the husband cheering, and I'm going to talk about that. Because my daughter, I'm going to ask my daughter, Kiara, to stand, and my son, Khalil, to stand, because they're here, I'm here. Come on, let me know. So with my 5 grown children and 13 grandchildren, and I think that I get to stand here because I'm remembering that all that I've experienced, I know that I am here today because my ancestors chose to survive. And I'm here today because I have ancestors to please, so I have work to do. And when I look out here at you, you're a part of that work. Because you're pretty special. Folks just don't just roll up in here. You ain't getting no free food, no free booze. I love McMenamins. You're a part of that work. Because you're pretty special. Folks just don't just roll up in here. You ain't getting no free food, no free booze. I love McMenamins. You're saying I'm a part of something. There's a social consciousness that I have, and I respond to that. There's some purposefulness here. And that's what we're responding to. And when I had so many different friends and people move into my beautiful, wonderful community that is no longer Williams Avenue, and I'm aware of evolution. As we evolve, and when good white folks say, well, I feel kind of guilty about gentrification, I said, Donald Mama said, we all want the same thing. You can ride your bike. Just remember who Unthank is. You can do what you do. You can recycle. I'm down with that. And when you move here, let your kids go to Jefferson. Don't send them out yonder. Become a part of the community. So when people ask me, I'm reminded of who we are, and I found a Black Pea flag just because I have a wonderful son who's gay, and he is not a mistake. God did not make a mistake when he gifted my son to me. And my house was a home for all those kids that didn't have someone that loved them for just being who they are. I remember one of my son's friends, and he'd come over and he said, do you think your mom, he thinks that I'm gay? He said, man, you real gay. And one friend came over, it's like 12 o'clock at night. My husband goes to the door, who's up the damn door? Big old Jean. Big old black, beautiful Jean, one of those little top dresses up to here. Big old black Jean. And black is beautiful. And he said, I want Rosebud. I said, huh? I said, oh yeah, Rose Festival, you can, okay, right on, baby. And what I remembered at that moment was, that was the only house that he could come to, and someone could love him, and someone could be happy for him for the crown that he received. So when I think about my evolution and who I am and I'm growing to be, and I think about Dr. King, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere, and I think about being black and beautiful and who I am, sometimes it's those courageous conversations that Kathleen always mentors me through. But I love her after I'm done with it. To be honest about who we are, and when I learn what is that about is to not glorify blackness nor demonize whiteness. Just keeping it real and remembering that we're connected. And Ubuntu, and it's amazing, the power of words. I think about Ubuntu. And it's that African philosophy. That's not even one English word for it. My humanity is extremely caught up in yours. I am because you are. And I've evolved to that. And when you talk about reconciliation, I had to forgive. One of my memories is when I'm living down south, and I know I'm going to take you back on a little house on the prairie on the black side. We had a wash machine that you put it in and you roll it through. And don't be tripping, get your hand up. So this is how we washed. And before that, I think we moved on up because it was a big old black pot that you put the water in. We had this wash machine and you roll it through. And then somebody said, they got wash machines. They got wash machines in town, y'all, that you put a quarter in them, you put your dirty clothes in them, and your clothes come out clean. I'm like, wow. And I'm excited, and I go with my dad, and we pack up all our clothes, and we go to this wash house, and we go in, and then dirt dauber, and when you're down south, everybody give your name, Billy Bob, Boo Boo, Andy Roo, Tootie Toot, it's all up. Dirt dauber is this white man at the wash house, and he and my daddy go hunting together. It's a strange thing in this South, we segregate. I can kick it with you, but you can't do this with me. So I'm going with my daddy to the wash house, and I'm going to put some money in, and the clothes will come out clean, and we go there. And Dirt Dauber says to my daddy, who he hunts with, hunts a rabbit, make rabbits do rabbit balls, but today he said, I'm sorry we're late. You can't go in there. And I'm looking like, what Dirt Dauber talking about? He said, I'm sorry. And he kind of put his hand down and said, I'm sorry we're late, you can't go in there. Can't let color in there. And I don't know, when you're a little kid, my daddy looked like he was 6 feet tall to me. But when he said that, when Dirt Dauber said you can't go in there because you're colored, it's like there's a part of him that just kind of shriveled. And I was ashamed. I was ashamed for being ashamed. I was ashamed for looking at him and wanting him to hit Dirt Dauber and wash the clothes and make them clean and white and right. I remember my daddy didn't say anything. We just got in the truck and went home. So when you talk about forgiveness, I had to release that because I remember it wasn't about who I was. It was about what Dirt Dauber wasn't. So that evolution and that Ubuntu, I get to remember that we're all connected. Now, when Dr. King died, we had a race ride. You know, they think rides are just down south or wherever. We had a race ride in Portland, y'all. I was in a housing community. And I remember white couple in a Volkswagen, love bug, was at the wrong place at the wrong time. And they're riding through our neighborhood, and Dr. King had just died, and people said, well, we're going to be slaves and kill the white. And they're riding through our neighborhood. And people in my community that I knew and loved was hitting them, beating them down, tearing their clothes off. Something in my spirit, because I knew that I was loved, grabbed their hand and said, run. And they ran with me to my grandparents' house. And they were safe there, and they called somebody and thanked us over and over. Oh, thank you, saved my life. I have some friends that are black also. Oh, shit, I didn't do it for that reason. I'm connected to who you are. Don't let me throw you back out there. But it's about keeping it real. It's that connectedness that we have. It's remembering who we are. That my humanity is connected to your humanity. And my children, oh, they teach me so much. And I remember my daughter, I got her permission because, you know, you get older. She said, Mom, don't play the mama card. Don't try to make me feel guilty when I ain't tripping. I won't call you. So I said, may I please read a part of your poem, my daughter? Because I remember being a little girl, and you running, the boys are chasing you, and you're looking, and you're running, and you look like, ain't nobody chasing me. I'm chasing the little yellow girl with all the hair. But I still got to remember that I was loved. So when my daughter wrote this poem, I said, okay, you get it. And her poem says, because my mama once said to me, oh, baby, your black is beautiful. And somebody told her that she was black and ugly. She ran home one day. And, you know, I'm not just saying because she's my daughter, but she's beautiful, okay? And she's not married, but if you, okay.
All right, Mama.
And she said, because my mama once said to me, oh, baby, your black is beautiful. Because of that tender age of 12, my mama sat me down and looked me in the eye and said to me, oh, baby, your black is beautiful. I am now able to live in my skin, make love to my soul, know my worth, understand my sacrifice, pick out my afro, grow into my gap and smile, because my mama once said to me, oh, baby, your black is beautiful. Her black is beautiful. Doug, your white is beautiful. You do such good work. Your lesbian is beautiful. Your LGBT is beautiful. We all get to be who we are in this universe. We get to show up being who we are to each other. And a sweet little old white woman said to me when she got comfortable, like, she seemed like a good little Negro girl. Maybe I could talk to her. And she said, you know, Antoinette, I tried to do right, and I was having a good time with this black woman. We were real good friends, and I told her I didn't see color, and she got mad at me, and she didn't want to be my friend no more. And when you're in the South, there's a reverence for elders. And that was a tender moment. She was telling me something. And Kathleen tells me, shut up and listen. So I was listening. What she was saying was, I was trying to let her know that I'm not racist and I'm not this. I said, but Miss Iris, when you told her that you don't see color, you were telling her that she was invisible, that she didn't matter. And I think that's what today is, that we all get to matter and figure out who we are to each other and how do we connect to Ubuntu. So in my closing, I'm just going to share with you a few of the things that Dr. King said that we don't hear about. We just hear about, just everybody shout out, what we hear about Dr. King said. What do you say? One more thing, we shall. Okay, we know that. And he was deep, and he was much deeper than that. So in my close, I want to share a few things that Dr. King said that you may not know about. He said, because I thought about what the power of words, when Sister Abel opened it up. Dr. King said this: power without love is reckless and abusive. Love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. And he said, and I'm going to put this in for my Pentecostal mama because she figured things out. When she figured out she had a gay grandson, she said, well, you know, God loves him too. So I'm going to put this little spiritual piece in because my mama's one, but she's figuring some things out. And it's never too late for anybody. So I'll put this in for my mama. Dr. King said, I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. And if you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power, and I will place it in the hands of a nation that does not even know my name. So it's about us coming together and connecting with who we are. And Ubuntu, this is who we get to be at our best to each other. Ubuntu is a Bantu language, and again it says, I am because you are. And it's the essence of being human. And I thank you for sharing that with me this evening. Ubuntu.
said their words. Maceo Pettis is working with Uniting to Understand Racism, and he's going to give us a few instructions about how we make that happen. Maceo.
Thanks, Donna, and thank you all for being here. Wonderful, wonderful presentation, the wise ones in the women's gender in the Black community. Wonderful. I just can't say enough myself, but I'll stop with that because I can go on too far. There's one other thing I did want to mention before, thanks, Jim, before we do the break, because some of you may not be able to stay. We also provide ongoing community dialogues that get in at a much, much deeper level around race. We touch on other isms, but we primarily focus on race. It's sponsored by United to Understand Racism. We have a sign-up sheet back there. We actually have one dialogue, community dialogue, starting on March the 24th. I believe that's a Thursday night from 6 to 8 p.m. at the downtown YWCA. So if you're interested, sign up. I will get back with you. We also have several planned in the future. If you can't make this one, or if it gets too full, there will be one in May, mid-July, and mid-September. Thank you. Thank you very much.